Welcome to the first in a series of podcast conversations with distinguished Reynolds School of Journalism alumni and visitors. I'm Dean Al Stavitsky, and delighted to launch this series of conversations with our 2012 Distinguished Alumnus Award winner, Sig Rogich. Internationally known issues management and public affairs consultant, advisor to presidents, former U.S. ambassador to Iceland, built the largest advertising agency in Nevada, and a great citizen of the community with the numerous educational and charitable ventures. And we're proud to say a member of the Reynolds School of Journalism class of 1967. So, Sig, welcome back to campus. Congratulations on your honor of being named our distinguished alumnus.
Thank you, Al. It's nice to be here. It's always nice to come back to this campus. It's a lot different than it was when I went to school here, but it's something to behold. And this school is probably as nice as you're going to find anywhere in the country. Well,
we're proud of it indeed, and happy to show it off to everyone. Sig, the purpose of this podcast series is to get the stories of our distinguished alumni and visitors. So let's start at the beginning. Can you tell us, how'd you make your way from birth in Iceland to the Reynolds School of Journalism?
Well, my mother married a man, Ted Rogich, my stepfather, and he lived in the state of Washington, and we flew here about 1950, I guess it was. And my father was a construction worker, and so we kind of followed the circuit. And we lived in places like Medellin Falls, Washington, and Newport, and Kalispell, and Missoula, Montana, and Sandpoint, and down to Cedar City, and finally into Henderson, where he worked at Titanium Metals, and then later into Las Vegas. I went to school in Las Vegas, graduated from Las Vegas High School, and then went to school at the University of Nevada in Reno, and that's how I got here.
How'd the Reynolds School shape your future career?
We didn't call it the Reynolds School then. It was just the School of Journalism. You know, it became something greater after I left, really. But I always had an affinity for writing, you know, and news gathering, and it was always part of my life. I read a lot, and so it was a natural thing for me to do. I didn't know what major I was going to take when I went to college. I really didn't have an idea for sure. I knew it wasn't going to be something with a lot of math in it because I wasn't very good at math. But this turned out to be one of the best decisions of my life. It taught me how to write well, taught me how to communicate with people, gave me the basics that I needed to move into the business that I'm in today.
And what was your path then, leaving the school? Where did you go from here, and what were the steps that moved you forward?
Well, I worked all through school. I mean, I was editor of the school newspaper, the Sagebrush, here, as you know, and I was a milkman in the mornings. And I washed dishes in the fraternity house at night, so I got my room and board paid for. And when I left here, I worked as a bell captain at Lake Tahoe for a short while, about a year. That was probably the best job I had, and when I think about it. Living at Lake Tahoe, being a bell captain, making all that money. And then I worked for a television station in Reno for a short while. And I think it was ABC was the affiliate at the time, and Lee Hirschland was the owner, really a nice man. He and Ginger ran the station, they owned it. And I ended up going back to Las Vegas to get involved with the campaign for governor. Along the way, I did a lot of campaign management, you know, writing, overseeing elections, you know, for some city races, and a little bit of involvement statewide. But I went back, and I ended up running, at the end of the day, I ended up running Michael Callahan's campaign for governor in 1970. And I worked for an advertising agency in the course of doing all of that. And then it evolved that I just felt I was doing more work than the agency was doing, and so I opened my own firm. Just a small shop, about 3 people. Then it grew, and we became one of the larger agencies in the state, and pretty soon we were the largest agency. And along the way, I had a chance to go to Washington, D.C. Paul Laxalt asked me to go back and help Ronald Reagan in 1984 as a director with the Tuesday team. That was the entity that governed and oversaw the election. And I did. And as luck would have it, I was based in Washington, D.C. The other 2 directors were in New York. There were 3 of us. And so that gave me access to the president. And I'd go to the White House almost every day. I'd go to the Roosevelt Room, and that became my office after the staff meetings. So it was right in the heart and the center of the West Wing of the White House. And I'd see the president every day he was there, basically. And I'd roam around the White House and pick places for shooting commercials, sets, you know. And so I'm a history-aholic, too, and to walk around the White House and I was enthralled. I tell people there's no prints on the White House wall. Those are all originals. And that's the way it was, you know, Remingtons and Russells, Charles Russells, and paintings of George Washington, Stuart's Washington, and some of the great things you grow up as a kid reading about and seeing pictures of. They were there and real. And after the election in '84, I came home again to my company, and I was working there, and the president called me, the vice president, asked me to meet him, asked if I would help in the campaign. And I went back and met with Lee Atwater and Jim Baker, and became advertising director for Bush for president in 1988. And I worked closely then with Roger Ailes. He was he and I basically shared an office together. Of course, Roger's now the president of Fox News, as you know, and has done a remarkable job there. And then I came home after that election, and the president called me again, asked me to meet him in Chicago, and I did. And he asked me if I'd come into the White House and be an assistant to the president. So it was the highest rank in the White House. I was flattered to have it. You know, there's only like 12 assistants. And so my office was in the West Wing. It has a lot of history to it. Someone told me John Ehrlichman had it at one time. Elizabeth Dole had it. After we lost in '92, Hillary Clinton took it. And after they left, who had it? I'll think of it in a minute, but there were other people that Karl Rove had it. And so it gave me good access to the president. My job was to travel with the president wherever he went. So I traveled on Air Force One to, I think, all 50 states and 46 countries, I think, with him. And I was blessed to do that. It cost me a lot of time. You give up a lot to do those kinds of things, but I'm a patriot at heart, so I enjoyed it, and I was proud to do it and felt privileged to do it. I came back, I sold the agency, and I opened this communications firm. I've had it now for about 12 or 13 years. And that's basically what I do.
Wow. So what is ahead for you, Sig? What's the next chapter?
I don't know. You know, I don't want to retire, that's for sure. I don't think it's healthy to retire. So I'm not sure I want to work this hard either. But I don't have any regrets about what I'm doing right now. There's a lot of travel involved. I just came back from an extended trip to Beijing and Macau and Hong Kong and Hanoi and Saigon and Shanghai and a few other cities in between, you know, because we have clients and business in those areas. So our company is a communications firm, crisis management firm, and business facilitator. And we do some lobbying as well. So it keeps us pretty busy.
Mm-hmm. What would you say to prospective students, Sig, who are thinking about careers in the fields of communication, whether it's the strategic communication side, public affairs, or news?
It's a good question. I tell everybody that the essential ingredient for me when I hire people is to find those who have the ability to write, who can write for the press, who can write to communicate, who can write good letters, who can potentially write speeches. Because I think if you get that background, if you can write good press releases, if you're a good journalist, there's so many things you can do. I mean, you can get into communications, public relations, crisis management. You can become a corporate vice president for governmental affairs. I mean, it just goes on and on. But the key common thread, the common denominator, is your ability to communicate through the written word. And so I always tell people that I think they should really pay attention to that. And that's the one thing I look for most.
Mm-hmm. Well, Sig, thank you for sharing your time with us and for this visit to the school, and congratulations again on being named our distinguished alumnus for 2012.
Thank you, Al. It's nice to be here. I'm real proud of this school. It's a splendid facility, and I think people will be blown away when they come through it. I've never seen anything quite like it. It's nicer than most movie studios I've seen. It's certainly nicer than most TV studios I've seen.
Well, if you need somewhere to shoot a commercial in the future, come on back.
I might just do that. Thank you.
With Sig Rogich, Al Stavitsky, thanks for joining us on this Reynolds School Conversation.